For your warm-up, I want you to consider certain problems. So make sense of it. Remember, today's strategy is all about how can I make sense of what I am looking at. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. And again, make sure you're on the side with the 4 rectangles. Remember, the only wrong answer is what? No answer, a blank answer. Okay, go ahead and begin, students. Excellent job remembering your name and date. How can you represent it a different way? Okay, students, I'm going to give you about 2 more minutes, then we're going to discuss this. You guys are doing an excellent job. It's interesting. Pause just for a moment. All right, so you saw the learning target today. We're going to make sense of these equation word problems by thinking of the story situations first. So the first problem, Abdullah, can you read the first problem aloud, please?
A family buys tickets to a show. They also pay a parking fee. They spend a specific total to see the show.
Okay, so the first one asked you, just in your own words, what on earth was going on? So what on earth was going on with that, Kevin?
That they have to find what's happening in the story. What's happening in the story is that they spent money for a ticket to a show and more money for a parking fee.
How many people were in the family, though?
We don't know. We don't know.
Good. So does it really matter right now?
No.
There could have been how many people in the family?
3.
5 or 4 or 6. But regardless, we know there's going to be more than one, right? What else did we find out in that? Just by understanding the story. What else? Jennifer?
That the tickets to see the show were a specific amount.
Yeah, the tickets are a specific amount, right? And then Devery, I saw you modeled with math. Can you explain how you modeled?
I put the show in the parking that was next to the show, or the concert, whatever you call it, and where they were driving out of the parking, and yeah.
Okay, so again, he said he put the parking separate from the show. Remember, we're all connecting this back to when we were doing our 2-step equations. So why would the parking be separate from the show? Jezza, why?
Because they're not saying the parking fee is with the show that they're gonna go watch.
So it's a separate transaction. Then I asked you guys to think, what could be the constant? What could be the coefficient? Now, students, you guys are going to share with each other. On these first two problems, I want you to share what it is you figured out, and then together I want you to come up with, what do you think the constant is? What do you think the coefficient is? What do you think the total is? So you're going to do both problems. Remember, we only talked about this one for a little bit, but I want you to share with both problems. Suana, what are we going to do right now? And who are you going to share with? All right. Students, I'd like to hear you discussing math, please. You have about 4 minutes. Begin. Okay. What'd you do?
For the second problem,
Uh-huh.
I think the map, to find the answer, we have to find out how much Diego has left for himself of ounces of juice and how much he left for his friends.
Hey, what do you think, Jessica?
I agree. I also did that. He started with a with an amount of juice, and he took away an amount, and he was left with some ounces.
Okay, so he's starting with a certain amount. Carolina, can you think of another way that we can go about that? Why don't you girls try that? Okay, and don't forget to talk about the first one too.
Do you want to start with the second one or the first one?
Okay,
Your choice.
how do we do, guys?
Let's start with the first one. So we have the same amount. Do you want to tell me how you got that?
Well, since it says that family have bought tickets for the show, there's actually a specific amount, but we don't know amount, so we need to put a variable. And I wrote T, and that represents the amount of tickets that the family have bought. But then it also says that they paid a
So what is the constant?
so, but we don't actually know how much they paid or how much it costs. So we also have to write a variable for that, which is P. Then I wrote X because, well, since we don't know the values of the tickets and the parking fee, we don't know the amount. So we also have to write a variable that stands for the total amount.
Yeah, we thought a lot of the same things here.
Are we able to figure out
And
which is the one that changed?
So do you want to read what we think is going on? In this story, a family is going to see a show and wants to find out the total expense.
Now, if I have
I wrote a family have bought tickets but also paid
do
for
I have to pay
parking.
20 parking fees?
We have to find out the total amount of how much they have paid.
Well, they're quite similar.
Yes.
For the second one,
I didn't quite start the second one because I was busy with the first one. But can you tell me how you got the model?
yeah. So it says that he has some ounces of juice, and we don't know how much he has. So I put a variable, J for juice, and he pours equal amounts for each of his friends, A for amounts, and he took that away from the juice, and has some ounces left for himself, and X is the amount that he has for himself.
Well, since you haven't wrote what's going on in the story, what do you think we have to write?
I think that we have to that he has juice and then he takes him away and he wants to find out how much he has left.
Okay. I agree with you.
So how could we write that to represent division before we do it? We put a fraction, what else?
That could be the total.
Sounds like
Four
they
equal amounts for each of it. That each has something to do with the coefficient.
What about the second one? Students, when you're ready, if I've met your group, make sure you turn it over and continue with your discussions. So you guys saw this first one was our guided one where we talk about figuring out what is one thing versus what could be more than one. On the other side, you'll see additional practice. So notice the one, we have Jada and then we have Kieran. So same thing with Jada and Kieran. What's going on? Can you make sense of the problem without any numbers? Of course you can. All you gotta do is think about what is the story about. So you guys are gonna do the back side, okay? But finish the front first discussions, and I'll keep coming around to the groups. Okay. Okay, so you created numbers. Okay, so you're taking sense of what's going on and you added numbers in. So for here, you said Diego has some ounces of juice. He pours equal amounts. So where in that is your coefficient? So a coefficient is what changes over time, right? So if I had my juice, here's my juice. Take my juice. There's Diego's juice. How much juice does he have? Just the one. Okay, because you're telling me that the juice itself would be the coefficient or more than one. But how much does he have? So he will pour it. So what he pours becomes what? Because with here, again, the idea of it is if we have some ounces, that's a jug of juice. And then there's your total. How much juice has it all? He's going to pour it into, well, how many friends does he have? 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, regardless of how many friends he has, this is the one that changes. So there is your Alright, try the backside.
Okay, was an art career. She spends hours on a sculpture and then paints picture frames.
Okay, so here, what's going on?
You go first.
Well, it says Jada works for hours preparing for the art fair. She spends hours on the sculpture and then paints picture frames. So I think we will have to find out how many hours Jada has spent in making a sculpture and painting picture frames and preparing for art fair.
Okay, so then what would be the total, what would be the constant, and what would be the coefficient?
The total would be the hours she works for,
Okay,
and the constant would be the hours she works on a sculpture.
why?
Because that won't change.
Why not the picture frames? Why the sculpture? What tells you that the sculpture is the constant? They're both hours, right? How'd you know one was just one? What told you in there?
Because that one already has a set amount of hours, and the picture frames don't.
How do you know?
Because it says she spends hours on a sculpture, and then it doesn't tell us more hours for the picture frames.
Very good. Good. Keep going. Okay, guys, how's it going? Ooh, I like this diagram. What's going on with it? Students, I'm going to share what Brandon just did for a moment. So what Brandon did was he decided to create like a table. So he's taking what he's learning, and you guys see it wrote constant, coefficient, total. So he's decided to make like a table to organize, like a graphic organizer. That's a really good idea. Now again, are we starting to see the point of this? Theo, what's the point of this? Okay, and then why? Emery, why? No, but add.
To get an understanding of how to answer questions without the numbers.
Yeah, because in reality, when we're working with two-step equations, we need to be able to break it down. And if we can do it without numbers, then once we have it with numbers, there'll be no problem because we're able to figure out what's going on. Now, I know some of you are still on Kieran. Why do you think I added that bottom one? Look at the bottom one. It says, what? Why do you think I added that one? That has numbers. Abdullah?
To make us see if we understand what we're doing and how to do it.
Yeah, why else, Kevin?
So we can make sense of the problem.
Now it's the other way, right? Because for now, you guys have had problems without numbers, problems without numbers. Now I've given you a two-step equation. It says 5x negative 7 is equivalent to 3. Now you guys need to make sense of that equation. And one strategy, because a lot of times you guys will tell me, wait, Miss Shintani, I get inequalities, but I'm a little confused if there's no story. Create the story. So I want you guys to skip down to that one if you're not there yet. So I know a lot of you are still on Kieran, but skip down to that third one. And then I would like to hear some sharing. Okay, so try that one. Okay, so try and create something.
Do you have an idea of what you're going to write?
Still brainstorming on how to write.
I'm kind of confused on whether we need to solve or not. So it'll make figuring out something easier.
Then Jenna brings 5 kids, 5 friends, and then names.
That tells you
But very not very unknown number. At Starbucks. And then she has 7 bags. What can her
Yes, of course.
That's like the that you started.
Could be, right?
And then for data filters, so you're like the coefficient that you're gonna repeat it.
So this is the coefficient of what repeats. This is the constant of what goes in. Okay? So sometimes it helps to look at the other comparisons. Abdullah,
Okay, let me hear you. This is out of the
so you're saying so more something that happens over. So I have 3 more things. Kevin has $5. Right here, but this,
Oh, I got it.
instead of saying 2, this is saying
At Starbucks, at McDonald's, there was a Big Mac that cost $7. And then, let's see,
Do you have any
there was
ideas
5
about his story?
McDonald's that ordered.
I'm thinking that there are some pencils, and then some got taken away, and there was a few left.
So you solved it before you wrote the story.
Okay, so what's going on?
We're kind of brainstorming on what to write.
Okay, so there are some pencils. What are you going to do with those pencils? They got to be shared with something, right? How many need to be shared?
7.
Okay, so 7's your constant, right? So it's not sharing. What would be the sharing? The 5. So maybe 5 containers, maybe 5 people, maybe 5 packages. Okay, how are you guys? Well, you share first. What'd you say?
I said he has X amount of $5 gift cards. We needed a magnifying glass for his chemistry class. Then he spent $7 on the magnifying glass, so now has $3.
Okay, so what was the question?
How many $5 gift cards?
Write that down. Okay, how about you? Each would be the code. How's it going with the big max?
So I think I have something.
Well, in order for there to be 5x, there needs to be what? 5 different somethings. So what do you want there to be? 5 people, 5 meals? Okay, write that down. Melanie, share your story.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if you would know what the ending would be. Would it be there are a couple left, or how many would there be?
But remember what the Shintani said. Since they're like giving it away, you gotta think of how it's gonna be like shared. So, for example, you could say packages. So, are you saying there's 7 pencils?
There's some packages with 5 pencils in each, and then 7 get taken.
Okay. Then you gotta learn how to write the 3 down now.
Would it be there a couple left, or how many are left?
Great job helping each other with that.
Well, I did your strategy. I solved the problem. My final answer for X will be 2. Because they like the I forgot what it was called.
The 2 sub equations.
Huh?
The 2 sub equations you use inverse operations.
Wasn't it called the reverse strategy?
All right, students. Melanie is going to share her problem that she created. Now, while she is sharing, students, I want us to think about, is it matching each of the situations? Go ahead, Melanie.
I wrote Karina earned $5 per week for chores. With the money she earned in 2 weeks, she buys one $5 book and one $2 poster. How much money does she have left if she subtracts the total she spent from the total she saved?
From what she had before, right? Okay, let's look at this one. So, Karina earns what?
$5.
$5 per week. Does $5 per week make sense if we think of it as 5x?
Yeah.
Okay, so far, okay, right? Then it says with the money she earned in the 2 weeks, she buys one $5 book and one $2 poster. Wait, I don't see a 5 up there. I don't see a 2 up there. Does it still work though?
Yeah.
Okay, most of you are nodding your heads yes, but raise hand, why? Janet?
There's a 7 and 5 plus 2 is 7.
Okay, so if she's buying it, then the money's going away. So then the negative works, then the $5 book and the $2 poster. Okay, so then it says, how much money would she have left? So is the criteria matching? What could Melanie do next to make sure that this problem does match for sure?
Show the total.
What was that?
Show the total.
She can actually do the math for it, right? Now, Theo, if you don't mind, because I know you're working on yours, but can you share what you have so far?
It says Simon has some pieces of candy. He equally disperses candy to his friends. Now before he does that, he saves 7 pieces of candy for himself.
Okay, so for our visual learners, thank you, Theo. In this case, what did Theo do differently from Melanie?
She showed the total.
Okay, so what strategy are we learning here?
That one person didn't show work and wanted the other people to work it out themselves, and the
Okay.
other people wanted to show them how they consolidate.
Okay. Emery, what else?
There's more ways to solve it.
More ways to solve the problem. So remember when you guys were telling me I have no idea how to solve this, I don't know what I'm doing? Now you've learned yet another resource. When you're asked to create the problem, again, aren't we just making sense of what's going on? And then some of you mentioned you had to edit this, right, Theo? Was it easy right away? So right away, the first time? No, that's part of the strategies. Making sense of the problem works both ways, whether we have numbers or whether we don't, as long as we make sense to us. Now, some of you were talking about Big Macs, because that made sense to you. Melanie thought about it in sense of money. That made sense to her. Brandon, I believe you also used money, right? And Theo, you used candy. That's using those resources. What made sense to you? Giselle used BTS. Because again, the Korean band is what made sense to her. All right, guys, I have another exercise for you. The whole point of this. Now you have the numbers. You will write an equation by making sense of the problem. Giselle, can you please pass that on that side? Now remember, this is collaborative, so you do need to be continuing with that, working together. And don't forget to put your name on this one as well. Okay. So now the whole point of it. Did anybody not receive it?
So do you want to go in order? Do you want to start with one in particular?
I think we should just write the important information first and then try to resolve it.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's kind of like the same thing.
It's the same story, but now we have numbers.
gave us the
You said the hours she prepares for the art fair is the total, right? So she spent 6 hours, so is that like gonna be at the end of the equation?
It could be 6 or 3 plus an x equals 6.
I'd be so tricky because
Do you think we have to solve it? It just says right, so I think we just have to leave it like that.
Well, since you used that in your equation, what about the 27 picture frames?
I don't think that we needed 27 picture frames. Maybe it's just extra information.
Well, that's true.
3 hours on the school sheet. 27 picture frames. But we don't know how much time she spends painting.
I think what we need to find out is how much it takes her to paint the 27 picture frames. Or do you want to try finding another solution?
Sure.
Okay.
Why? Why would 3 be the condition? On the.
oh, so it's right in the equation
What are you trying to find?
that we used to solve
The number of.
We could try to find
so we can
so we could solve this, right? And we would get 3, and we could try to find the unit rate.
definitely just put 6 hours.
If that's what you want to do, to do something with the 27.
He said 3 hours on school and paint 27 or we could say
I'm just gonna
The total is 6 frames.
If you wanted to find the unit right, I could have found it, but I don't think we could incorporate that in any way.
oh, saying that was right, like so you were right.
So this
So you
is
said
like
out 6
you put like a variable 3x equals 27, which makes it equal to 9.
3 hours. Wait,
Or do you just want to keep it like that?
I'm pretty confused for this one.
Do you want to skip it?
Yeah.
Come back to it later?
as the positive like coefficient of positive or coefficient
I agree with you with that. Okay, I agree with you with that. The equation says 3 equal amounts, so that means that we're sharing.
And because we don't know how much are in the equal amounts, it's a variable. What if we have to Because this is a. What if we have to do something like that? We have to incorporate the 27 in some way that isn't adding on to that. Because that's if we wanted to find how many hours she works on the picture frame.
But that means 6 for each frame.
But for this one, what if you have to do something like this? Because I think we also have to do a variable like that too for this one. Because 6x, we don't know how much the tickets cost, and there's 6 tickets. And then we add a $3 parking fee to get a total of $27 to see the show.
Oh, I see what you did. You put the variables in, like the family each had a ticket. So basically, there's only a variable with the number for the amount that they're sharing.
What do you mean? The variables there's 6 tickets, and we don't know how much the tickets cost.
Alright, guys. Let's talk about Jada. So remember, first of all, did you notice anything interesting about Jada? No? None of you noticed? Kevin, what did you notice about this problem versus maybe something else? What about your warm-up?
It was the same.
What, Brianna? So now it's the same thing but with numbers. Okay, Brandon, talk us through why you did what you did.
I did 27 over x plus 3 is equal to 6.
Let me make that a little darker because I noticed on the DocuCam it's harder to see. Okay.
I did 27 over x because we don't know how much time Jada spent painting the 27 picture frames. And then I added 3 because she spent 3 hours on a sculpture in total. She spent 6 hours in total.
Okay, so let's make sense and let's check. He says 27 over x. So we know there's picture frames. We know there's what? More than one picture frame, right? Then, why did he say plus 3 as a constant?
He spends 3 hours on the sculpture.
So Giselle, one more time, louder.
Because she spends 3 hours.
So 3 hours on the sculpture. How many sculptures were there?
27.
Just the one sculpture, right? Then 27 picture frames. But what is it we want? We want the hours, right? So if there's hours here,
You'll know how many hours.
total hours. Now, Jessica, Carolina, you guys had the same philosophy. Thank you, Brandon. But you guys are talking about slightly different. Jessica, can you come up and explain some of your thinking? Now, they interpreted the problem slightly different, but kind of the same idea. So, explain your equation.
3 hours.
Jessica, why don't you come over on this side?
I got the 3 hours from how much she spends on the sculpture, and the X because we don't know how much she spends on the picture frame, and the 6 because that's the total amount of hours she was working on preparing for the art fair.
So what was different between Brandon's and Jessica's? They both had the same constant. They both had the same total. Jennifer, what was a little different about their coefficients?
They wrote your equations.
Yeah, but is it the idea the same? 3 hours, hours on the picture frame, hours total. What could Jessica add to this equation to add in the picture frames? The 27. Now, most of you write it slightly different. You write it as 3 plus what? Instead of putting it as 27 over x, what do most of you write it as?
We put the x on the side of the x.
On the side. Now, was there anything wrong with the way Brandon had written it?
No.
Doesn't it mean the exact Same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Continue with your conversation, students. We're going to be talking about Diego in just a few minutes. Remember, you guys are doing a great job. Yeah, Giselle. Of course.
So at least we know that we had the right
Okay,
idea.
that's fine.
Talk about this.
So would it be 5 hours?
Okay, so it says, do you want to read the first one or should I?
We choose.
A stack of massive paper cups is 8 inches
Okay,
tall.
tell me Diego's equation.
The
What's
first
Diego's
cup
equation?
is 4 inches tall, and each of the rest of the cups in a stack adds 1/4 each to the height of the stack.
And all 4 inches and each of the rest of the
Okay, so you start
So
off
8 inches tall is our total,
27, 2, 3,
and 4 is our constant because it's a set height. It can't change. The cup will still be
Now,
4
you said
inches.
3x -6. Why -6?
And the 1/4 is the coefficient because it can change. If you add another cup, it'll be another
Plus,
4.
we can tell since it says each, that is the coefficient for
I think it might be the second one.
Second one?
Because it says a stack of massive paper is 8 inches tall. So for me, I think that's the total. And it says the first cup is 4 inches tall. So that's basically like the constant. Then the keyword that I found next was each of the rest of the cups in the stack as 1/4 inch. So that must mean that each as soon as they stack like the paper cups, it just has 1/4 of an inch. So that means like we gotta find out
How many cups?
yes. So I think like A will be the second.
Yeah, I can do
Oh,
that.
wait. The X could be the milk of
You read the next one.
A baker uses 4 cups of flour. She uses 1/4 cup to flour the counters and the rest to make 8 identical muffins.
Alright guys, I have 2 for you to look at. Deborah, if you don't mind, I'm going to fold your page just so that we can help focus our eyes just on the one that I'm talking about. So Deborah and Pamela both approached Diego differently. And I want us to evaluate how they did from that and if we agree with it. So let me just kind of center it so we only see Diego's. There we go. Okay, Pamela first, please. Pamela, what'd you do?
So he was sharing the juice and it was 27. So I was like, okay, since he's sharing the juice, I'll just put 27 there. Then he shares like the same amount, like 3x for like, no, he shares 6 ounces like for 3 friends. So I was like, okay.
So there's her 3 friends.
And the total is 6. And that's 6 for itself.
Okay, and then Deborah, how'd you approach it?
It tells us that 27 ounces of juice, that was the amount in total of the juice. He pours equal amounts for each. That word each lets you know that could mean that 3, that the number is talking about, is the coefficient. And 6 equals the constant. And obviously that is the constant because that's the only number left.
Okay, so first, before looking at, don't look at the math, just look at the 2 equations. Looking at the 2 equations, do we see that they both approached it a different way?
Yes.
But are we also able to see how both make sense? One was the starting point of 27 as the juice, then sharing with the friends. The other one went, well, this is the juice I kept for myself, then I shared. I still receive 27 in all. So whether we're starting or not, Now you might say, wait, I can mental math solve this one. I know Abdullah, you solved them. We don't quite get 11 though, because a positive and a negative means to subtract. Alright guys, in summary, today's lesson is all about being able to make sense of word problems, even whether they have numbers or not. This is another strategy that will help you in solving with these. Now, I want you guys to go ahead and work on this for about 5 more minutes before we transition. And of course, if there's any last minute questions, please call me over during these last 5 minutes of math questions. All right, guys. Remember, whatever we don't finish will become homework in just a few minutes.
Okay, so for me, what do you think it is?
I'm not quite sure which one's the total. The 4 cups of flour or the 8 items of muffin. But I know that 1/4 won't change because she's always using that 1/4 to flour the counters.
Do you think it might be for B1?
It could be. I could see why you're thinking that because the 1/4 is what she uses to flour the counters, and the 4x.
Should we look at the next one?
Yeah.
Elena has, Elena has a foot piece of ribbon. She cuts off a piece that is 1/4 of a foot long and cuts the remainder into 4 pieces of equal length. So I think that might be the total. Because it's a remainder. And she says that she cuts off a piece that's 1/4 of a foot long. But she starts off with 8 foot piece, but is left with 4 pieces of equal length. So for B, I think it's 1. And for C, it'll be 3.
8x plus 1/4 equals 4.
Do you agree or do you disagree?
I can see where you're coming for number 1 for B, but I'm not quite sure why 3 would match up with C.
Well, okay. So at first it says Elena has an 8 foot piece, so that means like she starts off with 8 foot, and then 8 feet, and then she says she cuts off a piece which is 1/4 of a foot long, and cuts the remainder into 4 pieces of equal length. So basically, like, I feel like it's 3 for C, since at first you said, wait.
You're saying that you're multiplying 8 by something, and then you're adding 1/4 of it. So maybe 3 goes to B and 1 goes to C. Because 1/4, and there's 4 remaining pieces. And look at A.
Okay. I see my mistake. My bad.
That one? So why?
Do you want to solve problems?
I think it's a reverse strategy. So we gotta like reverse.
Yeah, it's the inverse operation.
Times 3. this is correct, but it's not an equation. Try and take it in the format of the equation. See it, the poster? See how you got this coefficient? Or the other way. So you're starting with so total was 27. 27 minus 3 is 6, whatever that is. That's what you're.
Do you have an idea on how to solve number 2?
Right, and then that's
Or are you stuck on that one too?
I mean, the space is pretty small and it's kind of hard for me to write it.
check with Lauren. She's ready. She's right there next to you. And then Kevin. Actually, check with Kevin first. Kevin, compare your answers with Pamela, please, because you guys
I
are
got
both
it.
on that same area. Oh, check with Lauren, please. Oh, and of course, Kevin. Oh.
We gotta provide 3
I tried flipping it.
What did you explain? Why?
I think it's just gonna go one for that. Like for this one.
Are you asking me or are you telling me? And we have to be
Just
confident
gonna
with
keep
that.
going.
Does it make sense? Does it not?
Oh, yeah.
Confidence. Next one. So now you also have to compare the bottom answers.
It'll be like that.
For the second one, I got 7.
So now you guys need to
It was kind of
compare
hard for me to try to solving it the way we had it, so I flipped it, but it still signifies the same thing. I got 7.
Compare. Yeah. For sure. All right, girls, how we doing? We doing good?
Yes, we're just solving.
Which ones?
She did the first one and I did the second one.
Okay, so you guys need to compare this answer. Brandon, can you please compare with the girls on the third one?
Wait, this one?
Uh-huh. Because remember, you guys have to discuss, because we might not have the same ones.
For the third one, I got 6x plus 3 is equal to 27. That one.
What'd you get for the first one? Which one?
The first one I got C.
C.
Wait. For the first one I got. This one I got 3.
3. How'd you get that?
Because it says a stack of nested paper cups is 8 inches tall. It doesn't tell us how many paper cups there are, so it's 8 eggs. And the first cup is 4 inches tall, and each of the rest of the cups, the stack adds 1 inches to the height.
I can see that, but the first cup is 4 inches. And each cup is 1/4 inch. In total, with all the 1/4 cups, plus the 4 inches, it'll get 8 inches. And because it doesn't tell us how much 1/4 there are, we multiply that by the number, and for that, the equation that matches up with that is C.
So the total is
Yeah,
8.
1. Yeah. You're welcome. That was actually not a bad explanation. Like, he almost convinced me we were wrong for a little bit. Then for the second one?
The second B I got number 2. I just realized that one was
Like that.
Now, you
Oh yeah.
This one?
For that one, I got 4.
all right, guys. Whatever you did not finish, I do need you to finish as homework. We're going to go ahead and start transitioning to science.